Truly and sincerely, I tell you all, hope is a good thing. Usually, I have a place somewhere I want to start with these little talks that I give you all about movies. I'll usually have something, creative, something funny, something that's, from the pits of my heart, buried beneath my soul, where I'll just have an introduction and I'll just bring it out naturally and probably thus going into the movie I want to discuss. But for this particular scenario, I can't seem to find it. I don't have that introduction at all. I just can't seem to figure out any words or just something just in general to how I can just, go into this without even just talking about the movie, just going right off the very beginning, right off the bat, the top of my head, and just talk about this film. Now, there are a lot of movies throughout my existence that I have witnessed, that I have just watched over and over. This is one of them. It doesn't matter exactly who I talk to, as a friend, family, a particular employee at a store or a restaurant or a bank or a prostitute or whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, if the prostitute, if she's got her boobies hanging out trying to advertise, fucking hell, man. I mean, usually we'll go back to the bedroom and we'll start, hitting it off right there. But, hey, I'll take that prostitute back. I'll spend my money on the prostitute. And we'll just go back and I'll just say, you know what, before we even start fucking, let's talk about movies first. And the first movie I'll talk about first with her is The Shawshank Redemption. If she's never seen it, well then, never mind the fucking, we'll just pop on the fucking TV. I'm going to show you one of the greatest movies that has ever been fucking made, not just in the 90s, but in general. But let me just tell you all exactly about The Shawshank Redemption. The movie itself, the story is Andy Dufresne, played by Tim Robbins. He's been convicted of murdering his wife and her lover and is sent off to Shawshank Penitentiary. However, Andy is honest, he's quiet, he's smart, he's intelligent, he keeps to himself, and truthfully, he's not guilty. But the thing is that there was no evidence to necessarily prove his innocence, that he even did it. So, he's sentenced to 2 lifelong terms. However, though, he forms a friendship with Red, Morgan Freeman, that developed naturally. They all grew a likeness for Andy as time progressed throughout the whole film. It's like I said, he was a man who came off odd and, quiet and independent, but the thing is, he was extremely intelligent for his own good. And that's the thing, though, about when you watch movies about prison or anybody who's in prison, you hear a story about their particular track record or whatever. Sometimes the thing is that, sure, when a crime is committed, or if they're, let's just stick with the theme of the fact that Andy was not guilty at all, and obviously he isn't. But the thing is that for someone like Andy, who had nothing but time and patience, because the thing is, he loved geology, which was explained in the film. It was about pressure and time. That and a big goddamn poster. So pressure and time, using that to his whole advantage of serving his terms that he has had, at least for the 20 years that he's there throughout the course of the movie, he was able to take the time and pressure that he had to not only sort throughout his 20 years that he was there throughout the course of the film, but the way that they were able to describe and showcase the entire scenario of what Andy was able to do to, well, how you can say, plan his way of escaping Shawshank. It's absolutely brilliant. Now, the thing is, the movie itself, it goes through a course to where the first act, the second act, and the third act. The first act, it was literally an introduction to what prison life is like. How you got a group of guys who are close with each other, are able to smuggle in a bunch of different materials that any prisoner would like. That is like, alcohol, different foods they can't get in the prison world, prison world, but on the outside you can get obviously their currency, which was cigarettes, because when you're a prisoner, obviously when you're like playing a card game or if you're trading or whatever, it's their money was cigarettes. So getting fresh cartons of cigarettes, magazines, books, or a weapon really, or a tool, you know, just anything that can keep a man occupied and make their life in prison a little more easier. So that's what Red did. He was the guy who was known for being able to get things. But the thing is, that's what the introduction was like, showing you all what prison life was like, the ins and outs, how prisoners react, how criminals behave, what their mindsets are, and how prison life was able to go through a system. You wake up, you take your shit, you go on, you do some sort of job that you were instructed for, you go back to your cell, you read a book, or you're jerking off, and then you go to bed. That's what prison life was like in this film for Andy, Red, and everybody else. It was routine. The second half of the film itself, now, it breaks away from the main story and it showcases Andy going through the friendship, meeting Red, the other guys, and all that, adjusting to the prison life, and showing how he became the tax man for a lot of the cop guards who want to get their taxes paid. Now, the thing is that what Warden Norton was doing was obviously illegal. And the thing is that in order for a way to pay his taxes, was doing it illegally through a prison guard who obviously was a bank manager on the outside world. So the thing is that the second half of the movie is where it gets really interesting to where you see a particular character come in explaining, not only, I mean, showing an introduction of who he is, but it goes back to the relevancy of what the main story is for Andy Dufresne's innocence. The third act, well, it's one of the most notorious acts that everybody talks about in film. And that particular third act alone, I mean, then again, spoiler right there about the fucking picture. It's one of the most beautiful shots. It's one of the most talked about scenes. It goes into such in-depth analysis about the whole entire twist that's being presented to you all. It is absolutely genius. Now, I want to talk about a certain few plot points throughout the film that just really kept me engaged. One of them being Andy Dufresne's mindset, how he's able to keep his calm, his cool collection, because the first 2 years in the prisons where he was getting his ass beat by Boggs and the sisters, sure, it looked like they were going to rape him, but the thing is that Andy kept his guard and they just beat the everlasting shit out of him relentlessly. Sure, he was able to find a way to escape it and not get his ass beat, but most of the time, the first few years, like mentioned, it was rough for him getting his ass beat all the time until all of a sudden Hadley found out about the roughhousing that was going on, beat Boggs to oblivion, and sent him away. The thing is that the guys were able to grow Andy's likeness because not only was he able to provide him beer, but it's the way how he's able to handle himself, well-spoken, intelligent, quiet, content. It's just his whole entire personality. Sure, it took a little time, but once they realized and not judge a book by its cover of who Andy Dufresne is, it really showcased the respect a lot of how he was able to earn it, at least from everybody. But the thing is, the prison life is one thing, showing that, developing into the story and all that, breaking away from what the thing is. See, that's one thing I like, is that the main story of how the film introduced and how it was able to breathe and let that just make you somewhat forget about what the main story was and how it was just playing out between chemistry and interaction between characters, seeing their dialogue being developed of what they're talking to each other, making you like a believable typical day in the life of a prisoner. So that's the thing I really like, is how I was able to breathe away, making someone forget until once it developed more into the main story where Tommy, when he came into the movie itself. Now, this is one thing I like, is that he is a supporting character that you can say I somewhat obsessed when watching this movie multiple times. Why? Because not only is he the definition of a perfect supporting character, but he's that person to where when you study his character, like he's a perfect character study. He really is the definition of a character that you can just obsess and study about, because you want to learn about his past, and it's obviously explained in the movie what his past is and why he's in prison. He's a rebellious, he's a punk, he's typically that, you know, stereotypical greaser. He was that stereotypical greaser that when you see out there, he's got the slicked hair, he's got the sideburns, you know, the leather jacket, the attitude, personality, the mannerisms. That's who Tommy was. And when he got into the prison, obviously the guys liked him immediately because how he presented himself. He wasn't shy at all of being who he was. But the thing is, what makes Tommy such an interesting character is that, sure, he's rebellious, he's a punk, you know, he's, you know, silly and all that, and he's ignorant. But what makes his character so different is how he was able to difference himself and go into such a much more serious tone. Because the thing is, when he heard about who Andy Dufresne is and what his backstory was, because when Red told Tommy exactly about Andy's past ways in prison for, that's where not only the entire mood of the film changed, but it shape-shifted back into you, the viewer, focusing, realizing exactly what the main story is and why Andy's in prison. Once it developed back into the main story and you hear Tommy explaining the prior prison that he was in, just explaining the cellmate that he had, the cellmate that he had when he was in a prison, explaining that I went to this house, I killed this woman and her lover, and how we got a laugh at it. And Tommy, who was able to testify in court, proving Andy's innocence. But later on in the film, the Warden Norton, when he talked to Andy about his trial, that this could potentially give Andy a new trial into proving his innocence because he's got an alibi. Warden Norton didn't take no exception to this whatsoever, so they went to the back alley. Now, the thing is, Tommy, he was looking around the surroundings of what was going on. He wasn't aware about what was going to happen to him, what his demise was going to be, but he was aware exactly who Warden Norton was and what his particular, what's the right word to say, of how he was going to present himself. Tommy was willing to testify. He was willing to go to Andy's defense and prove exactly of his innocence, that he didn't commit the crime. But the thing is, when he looked at Hadley and shot Tommy right there, the reason why he didn't want this to go through because Andy was his taxpayer. He was committing all these illegal taxes, and he was making Warden a shitload of fucking money. And he did not want Andy to go or go to trial at all. Shit like that is fucking storytelling at its finest! Now, Andy, I understand. Throughout the course, he was able to put up with a lot. He was able to become friends with Brooks. Now, we all hear about Brooks' story. Now, the thing is, in real life, there are prisoners like that, to where once you're in prison for literally all your life, and that's all you know is being in the walls, being an incredible and reliable, well-known, prominent source, to where people know you and say hello to you, and you're like the big shot. But once you leave those walls, man, you're practically nobody out there. That's what it was with Brooks. He was literally nobody once he got into the world. Just like when a person's on the internet. They may be a big shot online or whatever, but in the real world, they're just a nobody. That's just how reality works, unfortunately, with a lot of things. But the thing is, when the Brooks Library was made, which it took Andy literally 2 years to write letters, sent it off to the Senate to create this memorial library in Brooks' honor, then going into the project where he's focusing on Tommy, giving him an education and everything. It's like I said, Tommy wasn't book smart, but he was street smart. But once Andy found out about what transpired with Tommy and Warden making up this quote-unquote lie about that he was trying to jump the fence, Andy had enough. He said, you know what, I am fucking done. I can't do this shit anymore. You took away something that was going to give me hope and continue on. Andy decided, you know what, I'm fucking done. He's going to make his escape. But the third act of the film, when Red was literally explaining the entire twist of the movie, how Andy was able to make his escape, it literally plays you while you're watching the movie. You're like, okay, Andy's doing his thing for the ward, and he's living his life. You're not really sure what's expected to go on. But when you see certain key figures, like certain shots of the film of how Andy's not only interacting with the warden, but with his friends, how he's presenting himself, being all sly and sneaky and everything, you wouldn't even expect it at all. But once you see that twist on how Andy was able to get out of Shawshank Penitentiary, brilliant fucking storytelling at its finest, man. I've already repeated that statement already, and I'm repeating it again. Because the movie is a fucking brilliant story. How Andy was able to get the better of the warden afterwards, when he walked into that bank, when he created, I mean, in the library, when he was talking to Red about how he was planning this escape from prison, creating this personality of Randall Stevens, and how he's going to have the birth certificate, the fingerprints, the date, the license, all the information, social security number, how he was going to have all of that, where clearly if any crime happened to this Randall Stevens, the authorities are going to be chasing after a figment of Andy's imagination. If that doesn't tell you how genius it is, there's really, I don't even know what else to tell you. Sure, Red, he got a laugh at it because he thought Andy was bullshitting around. He was kidding. But once he got out of prison and realized exactly that he was going under the alias of Randall Stevens, of going under this fake identity, he was not bullshitting at all, because he got the better of Warden. It's like when Andy said in the film, and this is to me, if not my favorite quote in the whole entire movie. On the outside, I was an honest, decent man. It took coming to prison to become a criminal. I'm just going back verbatim right there, but I believe you get exactly what I mean when I say that. That quote is fucking brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Now, the end of the film itself, it's very beautiful, because when Red gets out of prison, he obviously follows the instructions that Andy gave him. Because the thing is, Andy told Red, when I get out of here, I'm going to go to Sewataneo. I'm going to build this. I'm going to get my life together. I am going to have this little hotel project, build a little boat. And when you get out of prison, go to this tree where my wife and I ended up having intercourse with each other, said our vows, and ended up becoming man and wife right then and there. Something special and buried was underneath there. And once Red came out of prison, he was able to go to that spot. And by the way, that shot itself, where they're showcasing the beautiful, the sunset, that rock wall and that beautiful tree. Oh, that is one of my favorite shots in any film I've witnessed at all. Like, it's one of those shots where when you see it, it never leaves your mind at all. It's like a literal imprint that just stays forever on your mind. That shot alone, absolutely gorgeous to no end. So the thing is, when Morgan Freeman got out of prison and he was able to find exactly what Andy buried underneath there, he was telling him, one step further, come meet me and we will build this project together. You want to know what I loved about this whole film? The whole entire theme of this film is, no matter how much shit is thrown at you, you just gotta keep on going until you are free on the other side. Hope is a good thing. If that particular theme does not signify anything at all to what a person should relate to, how they should better themselves, keep on progressing further. No matter how bad or shitty the situation is, you keep on fucking going until you are free on the other side. The motivation for this movie tells you, slaps you right in the fucking face to keep on going. Movies like this that are able to motivate you to progress on with your lives, no matter how bad it is, you keep going further until you reach the end of the title and you see that light right there. Until you're able to be like Andy, you're under the rainfall, you're washing yourself up with a little bar of soap, and you're feeling fucking free. Just keep on going. So, ladies and gentlemen, folks, the year 1994 was absolutely incredible. You mean films like Pulp Fiction, Leon the Professional, Chungking Express, Interview with the Vampires, The Crow, Natural Born Killers, Quiz Show, Hoop Dreams, Dumb and Dumber, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and this movie right here. 1994 was just an absolutely fantastic year. And I'm one of those people who tell you all right now that Shawshank Redemption is a 6 out of 5 movie. It is a masterpiece. It is the definition of a perfect movie. That is my talk that I have to give you all about Shawshank Redemption. I had to go into detail talking about a lot of stuff of what makes this movie just so fucking incredible. I'm sure there's a lot out there, but I just wanted to talk about key things that just stood out to me that I just loved and what made me appreciate this story a lot. So that is my little lecture for you all about the Shawshank Redemption. Let me know down below your thoughts about this movie. And with that being said, ciao for now.